I have talked about the 100-Day Project with my students for, gosh, as long as I can remember. Obviously, it's been less than 7 years.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if it's the 7th annual or the 8th annual.
It's just one of them. It's just another one. I get that.
Yeah.
Time is a weird thing right now, isn't it?
Especially right now, right? I have my puppy Daisy here.
Nice.
Aww, Daisy.
That's
Hi, Julie.
I didn't hi Julie. I'm glad you could make it. I didn't close the office door so I could have cats or kids show up at any point in time.
Cool.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's all good. This whole new working from home thing is just like, okay, whatever. Well, I super appreciate you making time for us. This whole speaker series really came out of a okay, here we are at home. We were going to have designers and illustrators that we knew personally in town come in and talk to our classes. And I was like, well, if we have to do it online, we could go big.
Why not? Yeah.
So you are our first guest.
Cool.
Next week we have Bart Forbes, who's a Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame recipient illustrator and one of Seth's most personal favorites.
Cool.
The following week we have Chip Kidd, who's a book jacket designer from New York City, and then we have Piper Thibodeau, who's a children's book illustrator and character designer. So it's just going to be a fun, cool series, and we're so glad that you could be our first guest.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. What a great thing.
Right? If you're stuck at home, we may as well play.
Why not? What a good lesson for your students too.
Right? Just punt.
Just ask. Just go
punt.
for it.
Right? I have always I have a framed email that I sent an email to Milton Glaser probably 5 years ago, and I was like, do you think you could make 15 minutes to Skype with my class? And he emailed me back and said no, and I framed it. I was like, because the fact of the matter is that if you don't ask, they can't tell you no.
That's right.
And he emailed me back.
Amazing.
Right? So, okay, let's get started.
All right.
Tell us about you. Tell us about the 100-Day Project. Tell us about how you got involved with it.
Sure. So I didn't actually start the 100-Day Project. Michael Beirut started the 100-Day Project. Right. Michael Beirut is one of the most famous graphic designers in the world, probably. He's a partner at Pentagram. And it started for him as just a daily creative practice. And he actually, for his first project, did a year-long project where every single day he drew something based on an image in the New York Times. And it was just kind of this fun creative warm-up. I think he shared it online, but in a pretty casual way. And then after that, he was teaching a class at Yale. Mm-hmm. And one of his colleagues at Yale said, hey, why don't you do that thing that you do, that daily creative practice? And it just so happened that class started one day and ended 100 days later. So his year-long project became a 100-day project. And he wrote really beautifully about it a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, sort of like a 5-year reflection. Mm-hmm. And how it came to Instagram and how I got involved in it is my very good friend Elle Luna is an artist, painter, and author.
Brilliant author.
Brilliant author. A few years ago, she wrote probably 5 or 6 years ago, she wrote this essay that went viral called The Crossroads of Should and Must. Mm-hmm. It's on Medium. I highly recommend reading it if you haven't already. And she applied to Yale and didn't get in because she wanted to take this class with Michael Beirut. And then she realized, I don't have to go to Yale to do this project. Anyone can do this project.
Right?
Yep. So, excuse me. So the first year, which was 7 or 8 years ago, we're not entirely sure, she and a few friends just started doing it casually on Instagram, used a hashtag so that all of their posts would sort of sit together. Mm-hmm. And it just took off like wildfire. So people participate from all around the world. There are different variations of the hashtag, but the one that we use, the 100-Day Project, has almost 1.5 million tags.
It's amazing.
Yeah, every single year, thousands of people participate. And I first got involved as a participant. I did my first project 5 or 6 years ago.
Mhm.
It was a photography project. What had happened was I had bought this expensive DSLR camera that I didn't really know how to use, and it just like sat there making me feel guilty, you know? And I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to use this thing. And I carried it around every single day for 100 days. And then most of my other projects have been more writing based. And how I got involved with facilitating it was that Elle had become a very good friend of mine, and she had this idea for kind of a personal development program that would run in tandem with the project. So she and I co-led that for 2 years in 2017 and 18. Last year, she felt sort of like spiritually complete with facilitating. So she took a not a pause, like she's doing projects, but in kind of more of like a fairy godmother kind of way.
Nice.
And so I facilitated last year and this year. And if you don't know what the 100-Day Project is, I probably should have led with that. It is every single day. So you pick a project. It can be anything at all, and do it every single day for 100 days. Post it online with the hashtag the 100-Day Project, and then your own unique hashtag for your project, so that all of those posts are together.
Nice.
And people do all sorts of fascinating things. You know, Instagram's a very visual medium, so it lends itself to those types of projects. But, you know, everything from painting and illustration, quilting, knitting, sculpture, performance art. Michael Beirut says you could brush your teeth every day for 100 days and call it a 100-day project. So you're probably already doing a 100-day project.
Yes.
Elle and I got to interview him. We did a short podcast series maybe like 3 years ago. And he was a total delight. He was very generous and enthusiastic. And I recommend listening to that if you want to hear from the person who started it.
Absolutely will. You guys, I will post all of these things either in D2L or on Facebook, or I'll find some way to get them to you.
So you can find that on not Spotify, on SoundCloud.
Okay.
So that's kind of like the overview.
Super cool. Okay, so you facilitate now. Do you still participate?
I do. This year I'm doing something sort of meta, which is that my project is the project.
Oh, nice.
My hope is what I'm working on is a book proposal about the project.
Oh, so very cool.
I'm not entirely sure what this is going to look like yet.
Very cool. I know this morning I finally was like, oh, I know what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I have had a partial manuscript sitting in my Google Drive for as long as I can remember, probably 3 years now, called Creative Permission Slips. And so every day I'm going to write a new permission slip.
I love it.
Cool.
You know, and there are things like you have permission to follow the rules, you have permission to break the rules, you have permission to make something ugly. I think those things that we frequently need to be reminded of.
Yep.
It is not always, it's about the process. It's not about the finished product, which I think sort of speaks to what the 100-Day Project is about on some levels anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's complicated, I think, because it is about the process, and you know, we live in a world of likes and followers, and you know, probably you're doing something because you care about it and you want to be good at it, and it sucks to feel like you're not good at something, and you probably have good enough taste to see when something doesn't match up to like what you would like it to be,
right?
And I mean, that's all just part of the process, you know. Phoning it in sometimes is part of the process.
Exactly. I just have my in complete honesty and total admission here, I have done the 100-Day Project probably 3 different times, and I'm not sure I've ever made it past day 9. I used to joke that I was going to do a project at the same time called Just 9 Days, because that's as far as I ever get. So one of the permission slips is, you know, you do have permission to like do a half-assed job, just get it done.
You know, last year was my first year not finishing a project. And for me, that actually really felt like growth, because it was so counter to like who I am and what I do. And so to say like, you know, actually this isn't working and it's okay to walk away was really, really challenging, you know?
Yeah.
I really believe that however many days you do is great. I know a lot of people like beat themselves up about it, but if you're reclaiming even a little bit of space and time for yourself,
right,
I think that's a win.
Well, and I the thing I have frequently told my students is if you commit to something like that and you miss a day, it doesn't mean you have to be done.
Yeah.
You could skip like day 10 and day 11 and day 12 and then do 13, 14, and 15. It would be just fine.
I would venture to guess that like less than 5% of people get their 100 days done in 100 days.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And also like the rules are made up. So, you know, make up something that works for you. A work in progress counts, you know?
Right.
You know, in an ideal world, we'd probably have unlimited time and space and energy and money for our creative projects. In reality, many people are in school and work and have children and obligations. So, you know, what does 2 minutes a day look like? What does 20 minutes a day look like? What does 2 hours a day look like? And can you adapt for what you have? Can you make space for yourself?
Yeah. Yes. And that's, boy, it's an interesting time to be embarking on a 100-day project, isn't it? I feel like this year, maybe more than ever, there's a really important mindful practice to be made. I've decided I'm not quarantined. I'm an artist in residence.
There we
Until
go.
this is over. That's I've totally changed it's really important to me, the words I use. So I'm not quarantined or stuck at home. I'm an artist in residence right now.
I love it. And words matter. And like, it changes how you feel, you know?
It does. Yeah. What are some of your favorite projects you've seen throughout the years?
Oh man. I mean, I always love what Elle does. Elle is such a talented artist. This is her work behind me.
Oh, nice.
And I think
don't know, Elle was a designer for IDEO, which is like in some ways one of my dream jobs. And one day had a dream, correct me if I screw this up, and dreamed of this white space and painting and realized that her life was being directed by the things she should be doing instead of the things that spoke to her soul. And made a major shift and quit a job that most people would be just absolutely thrilled to have and started painting. And I just think is an amazing, inspiring, just talking about it gives me chills. So
it's like a really beautiful story, and it's definitely worth reading, I think. So all of the students are still in high school?
I have some college students here. I know Julie's got 3 girls that she's at home with right now. Crystal is one of the teachers of some of our students.
Okay.
So we have a whole assortment of people here.
Yeah. So we've got a range, but a lot of people are like relatively early in their career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, you know, I wish I had gotten to read Elle's essay when I was 17, you know, and how that would have informed, you know, I graduated with a degree in English and I thought like, oh, I should go get like an adult job. And, you know, if like what's going on right now is teaching us anything, it's that like everything is made up. Nothing is secure, you know, you can make decisions based on a lot of different things, including what you want.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so what are the weirdest projects you've seen?
Yeah. So this was like back when Michael Beirut was doing it at Yale. This woman did 100 days of a folding chair.
Oh.
Which sounds bizarre, but she interacted with it in 100 different, I mean, like how many ways could you use a folding chair, right? Like I can think of like 2. And it was just so out of the box, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird is such an interesting word. I think it sort of goes back to like what you were talking about earlier, process.
Mm-hmm.
So some people do it for that reason, you know, I think there are 3 core motivations for doing the project. And likely you have more than one core motivation, but one is sort of your primary motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them would be process, which is, you know, I want to practice. I want to learn a skill. I want to get better at this tool, right? I want to learn. One of them is play. I just want to have fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
1 year, Michael Beirut drew his left hand every day for 100 days, I think.
Oh.
You know, I just want to play. It's just like a fun thing that I'm not taking too seriously. Like I'm just exploring. And then some people really do want to have an outcome, so a product, right? And that might be an art show, that might be a portfolio, that might be a book, might be a performance. And I think it's really helpful to reflect on what your motivation is for doing the project in any given year. I think you're more likely to succeed and less likely to measure your success compared to other people's success if you know why you're doing what you're doing.
Nice.
You know?
Good point. Yep.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
And all of those motivations are valid, you know?
Right. That's awesome. Well, I think you just sort of spoke to what the benefits of participation in the project are. What are some other benefits or other things that you've experienced or had feedback from participants about?
Yeah, so many different things. And, you know, the big outcomes are, of course, exciting. But for me, I always love when I hear from someone who, you know, in doing this project found a sense of self that maybe they were craving, you know, some level of like self-actualization, that it made their daily life better in some way.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful. You know, Elle talks about how, like, in an era where, like, I have, no joke, right now, within 10 feet of me, like 6 Apple devices, right? Like, there's so many pulls on our attention. And to spend 5 minutes a day on yourself, where you're not like scrolling Instagram or reading the news or like watching Netflix, where you are reclaiming your time, your energy, your attention, is actually really radical.
It is incredibly radical. I would agree with that. Okay, so now I have some personal questions for you. My favorite questions to ask people. Are you a reader? Do you read?
I'm a very big reader.
Okay, what books do you recommend?
Oh gosh. Fiction, nonfiction?
Either or both.
Okay. So my favorite like personal development book is The Art of Possibility.
Okay.
Great book. Pretty slim, easy to read, and very actionable, right? It's not just theoretical.
Nice.
I use an app called, speaking of the internet, Libby by Overdrive, which helps me borrow library books to my Kindle, which is really very nice. I just finished a book yesterday. It was a mystery that I could not put down. My attention span, like a lot of people's, it's been a little bit hard to focus lately, I think, with everything going on. And it was delightful to be totally like consumed by this book. So it's called Conviction. My favorite books, though, Ernest Hemingway, A Movable Feast and the Sun Also Rises.
Nice.
Joan Didion, The Year of Magical Thinking.
Okay.
The Elena Ferrante books were so powerful. I mostly read women and people of color. Americana is an amazing book. I really like Sally Rooney's books.
Awesome.
Normal People, Conversations with Friends. Part of me wants to like look at I read so much that I sometimes have a hard time remembering what I've read. Thirsty was really good by like Madeline Moore. What else? And then I also love me some Sufi mystic poetry. So Hafez, Rumi, Mary Oliver.
Nice. Excellent. Do you listen to podcasts?
I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. I'll sort of like get into a period where I listen to them a lot and then I won't listen to them at all.
Okay.
This American Life My dad wrote a porno is like laugh out loud funny. I liked The Dream last year about
Excellent.
MLMs.
Yeah.
And then like Serial, any of the like true crime stuff I think is just so compelling.
I will tell you, I have a couple of students on here who are like, "Oh, she's my people. She said true crime."
Why? I don't know why. It's like it's like so rubber. It's like so trashy, really. But like,
I think we all have to give ourselves permission to have a little bit of a trashy side, our trashy outlet.
Yeah.
Mine is. There's a series of books called The Chronicles of St. Mary's that I just am completely obsessed about. It's a group of historians who study history in contemporary time. It's time traveling historians. It's hysterical. I love it. Alrighty, participants, do any of you have any questions that you would like to ask Lindsay?
I know we've been kind of talking about everything, but what advice for someone that's, getting out of high school and they're looking at this, a creative field as a lifestyle and a reality, and, how they make their living?
Yeah.
What's any advice that you might have for these, people coming out of school now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, like, congrats on being part of such an awesome program. You are, leaps and bounds more prepared for like the real world than probably the average high school student. My advice would be, it's so like people get so caught up in like the big existential questions, right? Like, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? These are big questions. They're important. They matter. And a good way to get to them is often smaller questions. So like, what are the things that you are loving on a day-to-day basis? What makes your life better? And if you follow those sort of crumbs, you'll get to the bigger questions. So don't stress out too much about like not knowing. Some of your peers probably know, some of you know, some of you have like no idea. And the way that you get there is by trying and doing. As creatives, I think the only way that you find your creative voice, your visual voice, is by creating. So commit to a practice. And, it's all of us have inspirations, and I think there's a point at which you have to like turn those off too, right? Julia Cameron talks about this in The Artist's Way, like, that in order to find your voice, like, you really just have to create from your life and your place, and your life will be great inspiration. So just living is actually a huge part of being an artist, I think.
Yeah,
excellent.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Crystal wants to know, what do you consider the most important skills to break into the art world or creative career, creative path?
Yeah, I think it depends on what you're doing, but having a body of work, right?
Yep.
And it sounds like you all are already doing that. Having a body of work, this is like a reality of the world, is that so many of the opportunities that you find are going to be through the people that you know.
Yes.
And it's also one of the benefits of doing the project is just community. So like, get out there, say hi to people. If you admire someone, send them an email, go to events, talk to people. Nobody likes asking for help, but everyone loves helping. So if you can say to someone, like, hey, I'm graduating and I love your work, people are always happy to hear that.
Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else have any questions that you want to ask Lindsay while we have her?
Is anyone thinking about doing a project?
I want to start actually. I just hearing about this morning. I'm sorry to say this is the first time that I've found out about it, so I'm thankful for this right now. I have a ton of projects that have all been started, and listening to what you were saying earlier, that might work out because they are all getting done, just separated.
Yeah.
But no, this is very inspiring, and I just joined. I just started to follow, so
cool.
I'm gonna try to step up here and do this.
Yeah, and some people do sprints. So like Betsy, if you're a 9-day person, do 11 9-day sprints.
Right, exactly.
Sweet.
It's all made up,
How does somebody get involved? What's the process?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. So visit the website, the100dayproject.org.
Okay.
Sign up for the mailing list. Okay. There are some digital assets there for you to announce your project on your own Instagram account. Okay. You can also create your own. Use the hashtag the100dayproject. You can search the hashtag the100dayproject on Instagram to find and follow other people doing the project. Okay. We also have a Facebook group, and the newsletter has a comment section, so part of the community takes place there.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. Gosh, anything else you want to tell us? Anything else we should know?
Let's see, we had a Q&A. Okay, so Oding says, the project interested me mostly because I'm drawn to the idea that you have to get something finished, because I'm always working on stuff, but I'm never really satisfied, to the point where I would scrap projects because I've heard it so many times. So my question is, how would someone combat creative self-doubt? Yeah, that's a great question. And I think one of the biggest benefits of doing the project is to just show up and do it anyways, to show up when you don't feel like it, to show up when you feel like something's bad. And the reality is like, what's the worst thing that happens when something's not good?
Not much.
It's just not that good. Yeah.
Right. It's just not that good. I go to a conference in Santa Fe every year in September, an artist conference. And ironically enough, Julia Cameron is the keynote speaker at that conference. And I took a painting class this year, and the very first thing that Flora Boley, who taught the painting class, said is, when I started my BFA, my professor said that I would have to paint 1,000 ugly paintings, and I better get started. and I love that.
Yeah.
I think there's some real reality there. It takes the pressure off having to make something good.
Yeah, I have like so many feelings about this. Like, one, I think creative confidence is earned through practice.
Yes. 2,
good. Like, let's examine this like desire to be good, right? Like, good is actually sort of boring, what is it that you really want? Like go deeper than good, and then work with it, right? So like something wasn't good enough, okay, turn it upside down. Elle right. does this thing where she's having a hard time with a painting, she'll put a color she doesn't like on the canvas, because then she has something to fix, right? Like, I hate hunter green. I have to work that out,
Nice.
So I would say everything is information, and how you use it is up to you.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Alrighty. Hey, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it. So all our attendees know, I literally sent Lindsay a message on Instagram, I think Wednesday night or Tuesday night, and was like that, yeah. Hey, would ya? Oh, we have a hand. Let me see. I have somebody with a hand up. Oh, Crystal. Okay, Crystal, I'm unmuting you. So, it was your kid. We love kids. Kids are fun. I think that's funny. I have just thoroughly enjoyed being at home with my kids, although every once in a while I'm like, hang on, I'm teaching a class. I can't answer your question right now. Alrighty.
Thanks so much for reaching out, everyone. And I hope that you join us on this project. And I'm so excited for what the future holds for all of you creatives, and just keep going.
And you guys, the timing was great because the project kicks off on Tuesday, the 7th. Starts Tuesday.
Sweet.
So, alrighty. Thank you so much. We'll see you on Instagram. Guys. I appreciate you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
Have a great day.